Hi Yarny friends, I'm Sara Sach and welcome back to my crochet channel. Now today's video is the first Monday in July, so we're releasing our July square. This one is called the July Ruby. I love how it turned out. It starts out similar to a flower with an open look to it, and then we use some variegated red, white, and blue, and then trimmed it in red. Now these again are the colors that I have chosen. Remember, when you make your squares, you can do them any colors that you want to. All right, so January garnet, February amethyst, March aquamarine, April diamond, May emerald, and then last month was June pearl. And so today we're doing the ruby for July. All our squares are 6 inches. If you want to learn more about how the crochet along goes, you can go back to that first video in January. But basically we're doing a 6-inch square each month, and you need to make at least 2 if you're going to make the blanket that we're going to make. But again, you can use any of these for any project that you want. You can make hats, you can make scarves, blankets, anything that you want with these squares. Bags, I love making bags with squares. All right, and so you don't have to do, each one each month if you don't want to. You can pick and choose the ones that you love. And also, if say you really love this one, but you're not really into emerald green, make it in whatever colors that you want to. And you can do that with all of the squares. What we're doing basically is I'm designing a square for each month using the monthly birthstone as my inspiration. All right, so we're making the July Ruby today, and it is super cute. Now I have used medium weight acrylic 4 weight yarn for all of my projects, and you can find the link to the blog that has the pictures and the written pattern, and you'll also find on that blog all the links to all the other squares of each month. And I'll also put the video links down in the notes underneath this video so you can find the videos as well as the written patterns. And so as I stated, I'm just using medium weight number 4 acrylic yarns. These two happen to be Red Heart Super Saver. This is just, I think it's called Cherry Red. And this is the patriotic one. I don't have the labels anymore, so I don't have the exact names of them. But these are medium weight number 4 acrylic yarns. And you need about maybe a ½ ounce, if that, of each one. All right. So I'm using red for the center and the outside, and then this variegated on the inside. And again, change the colors, whatever you want to do. If you want to try this and just have some yarn to practice with, that's totally fine. Have fun with it, okay? Now we're going to stitch with our H-hook today, 5mm. Then you need a pair of scissors and your needle. All right, so with our color 1 or red, whichever colors that you're choosing, we're going to begin with our slip knot. We're going to do that chain 5 and join in a circle. And again, as I've stated many times, if you prefer to do a different sort of beginning chain, like maybe the magic circle, you certainly can. You do what works best for you. We're going to go in, pull up a loop, and chain 1. And now what we're going to do is we're going to stitch 12 single crochets in this loop. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whoops, get around there, 6, and we're going to push those down in there tightly. And you'll also notice that I'm stitching over my tail of yarn, and that's so I can close up that hole when we're done. Alrighty, now 7, get some more yarn here, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 single crochets. We're going to join to that first single crochet with a slip stitch. Now we're going to turn this over, and we're going to pull that loop out a little bit big so we don't lose it. And then we'll just pull on that string of yarn and close up that hole. Grab my needle. And we'll go ahead and weave this in. Now, you can do this later if you want to. I just like to get it over with. Then I don't have to worry about it later. Now this is a tight circle because there is 12 single crochets there. So that might be a little bit snug, but that is okay. Whoops. Pulled out my loop, didn't I? Alrighty, let me go ahead and clip this off. I pulled that loop out, so I had to rejoin to that first single crochet. All right, and now we're going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to skip the next 2 and then single crochet in the next and chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A little more yarn out here. Alrighty, we'll skip 2, single crochet in the next. There we go. Chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Skip the next 2 and then single crochet in the next. Okay, so now we're going to chain 5 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We're going to skip those next 2 and single crochet in that next single crochet. So now we have 4 chain 5 loops and 4 single crochets. So we join to that first single crochet with a single crochet. We're going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we're going to single crochet in this chain 5 space. And then we're going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we'll single crochet in the next single crochet. All right. Then we'll just repeat that. Chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Single crochet in the chain 5 space. And then chain 5. And single crochet in the next single crochet. All right, so let's do that 2 more times. So we'll chain 5. We'll single crochet in the chain 5 space. Chain 5. And single crochet in the next single crochet. Chain 5. Single crochet in the next chain 5 space. Chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we'll single crochet in that last single crochet. All right, and so now instead of having 4 chain 5s, we have 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So now on row 4, we're going to make our flower into a square. All right, so we're going to slip stitch in the next chain 5 loop and chain 1. All right, so what we're going to do here is form our first corner. So we're going to stitch 2 single crochets, 1, 2, chain 2, and 2 single crochets, 1 and 2. All right, so there's our first corner. We're going to chain 2, then we'll go in the next chain 5 space and stitch 2 single crochets. and chain 2. My yarn is being just a little bit naughty today. All right, so we made our first corner, 2 single crochets, chain 2, and 2 single crochets. Then we chain 2 and stitch 2 single crochets in the next chain 5 space and chain 2. So now we'll go to the next chain 5 space and stitch 2 single crochets, chain 2 and 2 single crochets, 1 and 2, and chain 2. Then we'll go to the next one and stitch 2 single crochets, 1 and 2, and chain 2. And you can see how that's forming a square from our flower. All right, so now we'll go to the next one and stitch another corner. 1, 2, chain 2, 1, 2, chain 2, and then 2 single crochets in the next chain 5 space, and chain 2. And we'll just repeat that one more time. All right, so now we're going to join to that first single crochet with a slip stitch. Then we'll slip stitch in the next single crochet and then slip stitch in that chain 1 space. And I'm going to go ahead and chain 1 there. And you can see it looks a little wonky, so you just have to sort of stretch it out. So now we're ready for row 5, and I decided that the variegated can be a little bit difficult to see because it is such a busy yarn. I'm just going to go ahead and just use this blue. I think that will help understanding what we're doing, and plus it'll make it look pretty. All right, so we're going to go ahead and cut our red yarn, and we're going to bring in our color 2. And again, you can use whatever colors that you would like. All right, so I've got my blue attached. We're going to go in this chain 2 space, go in, pull up a loop, and chain 1. And again, our chain 1 does not count as a stitch. All right, so now we're going to stitch 2 single crochets, 1, 2, chain 2, and 2 single crochets in that first corner. We're going to chain 2, and we're going to go in the space right here in that chain 2 space and stitch 2 single crochets, 1 and 2, chain 2, then we'll go to the next chain 2 space and stitch 2 single crochets and chain 2. Then we'll go to the corner to that chain 2 space and we'll stitch that corner, 1, 2, chain 2, and 2 single crochets. All right, see how that looks? We've got 2 single crochets, chain 2, and 2 single crochets. Then we chain 2, 2 single crochets in the chain 2 space, chain 2, 2 single crochets in the chain 2 space, and chain 2. And then we repeated the corner, chain 2, and we'll just repeat what we did on the side. Now we'll go to the next corner to the chain 2 space. And see how that looks? Corner, chain 2, 2 single crochets, chain 2, 2 single crochets, chain 2, then we're back to the corner, and we'll repeat that on these last 2 sides. I repeated that on those last 2 sides. I'm going to join to that first single crochet, then slip stitch in the next single crochet, and slip stitch in the chain 2 space, and chain 1. So now we have 4 corners, and on our sides we have 2 sets of 2 single crochets with chain 2s in between. Okay, so now what we're going to do is just do the same thing. The only difference is now we're going to have 3 chain 2 spaces on our side. All right, so we'll do our 2 single crochets, chain 2 and 2 single crochets, chain 2, go to the next chain 2 space and stitch 2 single crochets, chain 2, go to the next chain 2 space and stitch 2 single crochets, chain 2, 2 single crochets, and chain 2, and that brings us to our next chain 2 space, which is a corner, and so we'll stitch 2 single crochets, chain 2 and 2 single crochets, and chain 2. So now we have a corner and 3 sets of 2 single crochets with chain 2s in between. And so we'll repeat what we just did on these 3 sides and then join back to our first single crochet. I have completed row 6. I joined in my chain 3, slip stitched in my next single crochet, and then slip stitched in my chain 2 space and chained 1. And so now on the sides we have 1, 2, 3, 4 chain 2 spaces with our 4 corners, and then 3 sets of our 2 single crochets. All right, and basically what we're going to do on row 7 is the same thing. We're just going to have 4 sets of those 2 single crochets instead of the 3 because we are increasing on this row again. So we'll do our corner the same, 2 single crochets, chain 2 and 2 single crochets in that chain 2 space. All right, we'll chain 2 and then we'll place 2 single crochets in each of the chain 2 spaces and chain 2, working across. And remember to chain 2 between our 2 single crochets. And see, now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 of our 2 single crochets, and that gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chain 2 spaces. All right, and then we'll go right in that chain 2 in the corner and make our corner, 2 single crochets, chain 2. I guess the blue yarn's naughty also. All right, chain 2. There we go. So we have 2 single crochets, chain 2, 2 single crochets, chain 2, and now we're just going to repeat on these 3 sides what we did over here. I have completed row 7. We have our 4 corners, 2 single crochet, chain 2, 2 single crochet, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 sets of our 2 single crochets, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chain 2 spaces. And so for row 8, we're basically just going to do the same thing. Again, we're just going to have more chain 2 spaces and 2 single crochet groups on each side. The corners are the same. All right, so we'll just place 2 single crochets, chain 2 and 2 single crochets in this first corner, and chain 2, 2 single crochets in the chain 2 space all the way across. So really, this pattern looks a little bit complicated at first because of the way we begin, but once you get going, it is super easy. and really quite fun, I think. All right, see, we have our corner, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sets of our 2 single crochets with our chain 2s in between. Then we go right to that corner, chain 2 and 2 single crochets, and then again we'll repeat that on these 3 sides and then join back to our first single crochet. I have completed row 8, and you might notice that it's looking a little bit what I would call wonky. And it's because of the way it pulls with doing single crochets. But don't panic, because you can always block it on a blocking board or a piece of cardboard. Just pin it down on a towel or a blocking board, spritz it with a little bit of water, let it dry overnight, and you'll get a nice even square. Okay? This one's on the blocking board now because I want to make sure it's crisp. But, you know, you don't have to block your squares. I just like doing it because it makes it easier when you go to put them together if they're all uniform. All right? Now, we do have one more row to do on this, and so I'm going to bring the red back in. So this last row is just a row of single crochet. That's going to help us, when it's time to hook them all together, have that row so that they'll all fit nicely together. All right, so we'll bring in our red, chain 1, snug it down, and we're going to be going in the corner. We are going to do it just a little bit different. We're going to have 2 single crochets and only chain 1 instead of 2, and 2 single crochets. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to single crochet between the first and second single crochet. Okay, now we're going to single crochet in the chain 2 space, just 1 single crochet. Then we'll go to the next 2 single crochets and single crochet between those next 2, and then 1 single crochet in the chain 2 space, and we'll repeat this across. 1 single crochet between the 2, and then 1 single crochet in the chain 2 space. And this is going to kind of buckle it in there, make it nice and neat. And also helps if it's looking a little bit wonky, as I say. It'll tighten it up and make it lay pretty. And you could use a white yarn, you could use your variegated, any color of yarn that you want for this last row. And again, you can use any colors of yarn for these patterns. You don't have to do the colors that I have chosen. All right, so there's our first row across. We went between those 2 single crochets. Now we're to the corner, and we're going to stitch 2 single crochets, chain 1, and 2 single crochets. And then we'll just repeat across what we did over here. 1 between the first 2, 1 in the chain 2 space, 1 between the next 2, 1 in the chain 2 space. All the way across, and then we'll do the corner the same and repeat this so that all 4 sides are the same, and then we'll join back to our first single crochet. And see, by putting this trim on like we did, it really squares it up and makes it look pretty. So we'll cut off the red. We'll go in that next loop and pull that to the back. And we do have a few ends to weave in here because we changed colors a couple times. But we'll weave those ends in with our needle. But this is the way that it should look. Now, if it's not laying like you want, like I said, just grab you a blocking board, or another way to block it, you can put it on a towel or on a piece of cardboard. I always spritz them down with water and then set them on my dryer, especially when I know I'm going to do a load or two and some heat's going to come up through that dryer. All right, but this is our July Ruby Square of the Month.